today's Tuesday Table Talks. I'm your host, Mantra Lotus.
And I'm Tigra.
Right, today's show, well, we are in the beautiful space of
Loving like cuisine.
Right, on a very special day, which is Love Day, National Love Day, Valentine's Day. We're here to express all the love we have for everyone as best as we can. So, as you know, today is a discussion on healing Black male and female relationships. And our guests today are starting
David Brookfield.
Yes.
And Kelly Wembley.
Right.
Hey.
And of course, we are here, right? So we, as always with our lives, we have no certain script. There's no setup. We basically know the topic. And so basically that's what we're going to do. We're just going to go. And I'm going to turn it over to
To Tigra? Oh, goodness.
Tigra!
Well, basically, this topic, this is going to be the first in a multi-series, we believe. We cannot tackle everything in one day, of course, right?
No.
So we're just going to start with the state of the Black-female relationship today. Like, what's going on? What is everybody thinking? How can we fix this? What kind of struck me, kind of looking at things on social media, for example, the Tory versus Meg case. You know, you had a lot of women supporting Meg, but a lot of men and women were just not believing her. And it went from opinion to attacks on both sides. So we're just trying to get to the bottom of what everybody's thinking, right? Things like that.
I don't know anything about the Tory man. You're informing me right now.
This is great. So
I don't know
basically,
anything about this.
Meg Thee Stallion is a entertainer,
that
a
person
rapper.
I've heard of. Okay.
And I don't even know if I should say alleged because he was found guilty.
He was.
Okay. So she informed that she was shot in the foot by him.
Okay, I remember something about this
Okay.
a little while ago. Okay.
And then so there were testimonies and things, and people were just calling her liars. They were calling her out, bringing up her past, saying what she did, who she did, and things that were irrelevant to the case.
Don't you
Yes.
just have to just look at a foot? I mean,
Were they saying that he did? It was just
Okay.
a big mess.
Okay.
And again, that's just one example. There was another gentleman, and I believe he passed. I don't know his name. Do you remember that man's name with the glasses that was saying these?
Kevin Samuel?
Yes.
Oh, heaven.
oh yeah.
Yes.
Which he produces mixed emotions anyway. So
Yeah.
Yes. So and so the things that he was saying and his opinions and just men backing him up, and there's just a lot of tension in the community. So it's just like, what
do you think? I mean, we're talking on tension, and so first and foremost, I think a lot of us have our background, opinions on certain things based on our own personal experiences. So, we may be more, or some of us may be more supportive of a woman who's saying that she's being abused versus someone who may not have a history of it, or someone who's dealt with misogyny versus somebody who hasn't, and also value systems, I think, come to play in it as well. With these particular cases, I don't know if I want to touch Kevin Samuels.
Yeah, we're not going to do that.
I don't
today.
even know if y'all want me to touch Kevin Samuels, because this might be a whole.
That's another episode.
Yeah, we might say this for and we're going to need some calming tea if we discuss Kevin Samuels. But
Yeah.
you may disagree.
I'll say maybe you can just touch on Kevin Samuels, his ideology in generalities, maybe not specifically him.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like you said, he is a very polarizing character.
Mhm.
And there's people feel their ways,
Mhm.
of course. I always felt as though, because I watched him actually for years, but when he started off on social media, YouTube, things like that, his beginning videos were specifically designed, aimed at men.
Yeah, it was.
Mm.
How to tie ties, how to appropriately mix your wardrobe, how to be a man, which I can tell you personally, that's a huge gap that's out there for men. I mean, it's enormous, the gap, and it seems to only have widened
Yeah.
as I've gotten older.
Yeah.
I'm in the military, been in there 26 years. And so I've become the old man in the military, and I have a lot of young men. And I noticed within the last decade that I'm not just being a leader, teaching a soldier how to be a soldier. I'm teaching men how to grow up.
Yep.
And it's not even that they don't have fathers in the home where you would think that would be the biggest issue. They have fathers. The fathers are just like, hey, your problem now. 17, 18-year-old. And we all know that 17, 18-year-olds aren't adults yet.
That's right.
Not even close sometimes. So I would watch his stuff and I find myself regurgitating some of the same sentiments that he had to these young men. You need to learn how to tie a tie.
That's right.
You need to learn how to address people. You need to learn how to act accordingly in certain types of environments, how to be at a nice fine dining restaurant and understand what a 4 or 5 or 6 course meal looks like, what the silverware set, et cetera, etiquette, you know what I'm saying? All those things are important. They're lost. And that was where he started. And he wasn't getting a lot of traction, a little. And then he started turning to how men should act towards women. And that got a little more traction. But as soon as he turned the camera around and he said, hey, women, what do you guys want? And it seemed that all the women were giving him this cookie cutter. We want this top tier, awesome, best of the best superhero man. There's another comic out there who says that he's like, you want this fantasy guy. Not you women specifically, but as a whole, they want this. Maybe, okay. They want this fantasy guy to be tough, but soft, smart, but a thug. All these dichotomies that don't typically exist inside of a person, realistically, not in an equal share, and they all want this same person. And you say, do you know how many people exist like that? And when he did that, the backlash.
Right.
But his show became popular.
Oh, it did.
Controversy
Definitely did.
sells.
Yeah. It
So
does.
It's
It
interesting what
It
happened.
does. And I with a discussion like this, and I hate to get to the end part of wrapping things up and keeping it light and, easy. But when we have people, women and men, Black men and women who are in pain and hurting, and we seek that communication between each other, and sometimes it just gets lost in translation as to what our needs are and what we look for in a mate, what we look for in a relationship. And also, I think when it comes to the internal, we were with Kevin Samuels or anybody else who's saying that you need to be this type of woman in order to get that type of man, or you need to be that type of man to get this type of this woman. So we have these definitions of what define malehood and womanhood. And when those questions are aimed, we can kind of become critical as to, like you say, oh, you need to lose a couple of pounds if you want that man, and it's like, hold up, wait a minute. Is this about so I think the issues specifically with Kevin Samuel was dealing with some of the shallow stuff. For me, some of the shallow issues, the things that I thought were on surface and not necessarily dealing with like real stuff, real issues of why, we may not have the respect that we have for one another, why we've kind of stopped loving each other in a sense, like really loving each other, and why we don't see each other. We kind of drift over certain issues within the community that, I think it's that's them, and have our certain viewpoints. And I don't think we give each other enough credit,
I think with most things, it all comes down to communication. And some people aren't really, they say, oh, let's talk, but then when you begin talking, they hear something they don't like, or you say something that may hurt my feelings. It's easier said than done a lot of times when it comes down to the communication piece.
Would you mind if I inject something? I look at communication. This is how I've taught my sons. And when somebody tells you, if you go outside and I say it's hot, and you go outside and you say it's cold, we're both right. If when I go outside and I say it's hot, it feels like 100 degrees to me. You go outside and you say it's cold to you, it feels like it's 2 below. We both have to look at the thermometer. How you feel is what you feel. But that does not mean what you're feeling does not mean that that's what it is. That's what it is for you and your experience. So a lot of times I believe that when we come from, like, one may come from logic and another person may come from their feelings, but if you don't know if that's the type of conversation both of you are having, then you're going to clash. And if one person isn't aware that the other person is coming more from the bulk of their conversation is coming from their experience and their feelings, and another person is coming from, well, this is what I've read, this is what science says, this is blah, 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 and that's the foundation of their conversation. You're going to constantly butt heads, so a lot of that has to do with how much we study each other. If you're in a relationship, you can't, it's hard to, everybody generalizes, get to the Kevin Samuels thing, he's talking about generalizations and stuff like that. Everybody does that. But when you get to specific people in a relationship, to me, it's not fair to compare your relationship to someone else.
That's true.
So I remember going to I was talking to a therapist friend, and they compared their boyfriend-girlfriend relationship to someone's marriage.
Mm.
And I went, that's not the same. I'm not saying you don't. And they took it like, well, I love him, he loves me. I didn't say that. You threw in some variables because you can't push buttons on somebody that doesn't have them. So, and you don't know how deep that button is. That button might have started when they were 5, and the other person got it started when they were 25. And that person's been stewing on that button from 5. And then they talk to you, and you're wondering where the intensity came from. And until you have a conversation, you don't know the root of it all. You're catching all this blowback, and depending on how much we really want to listen and learn to say, the intensity of that isn't me. That's not the level of where it came from. That isn't me. But because I care about that person, I want to explore where they came from. It's one thing to be attracted to somebody. It's another thing to explore who they are. And I think a lot of time what's happening is we're doing like an Instagram short, almost like soundbite-ish kind of thing. And you get this little bitty bit and you blow it up into 20 times more than what it is. It's like political sound bites. And you don't know nothing about their platform. You don't know, you ain't read none of it. You don't know what they're really down with. You just seen this little 15, 30-second thing, and that represents their entire campaign. And I think a lot of us have been entrained to do that. When I see some of the younger folks, because I've been working with young folks over 20, 30 years, and I've seen a lack of a better way of saying it, a dumbing down. So
It is.
of how compared to what I'll just say the distractions that we had on steroids for them now.
Mm.
For instance, when I was a teenager, the phone was on the wall. And if I wasn't home, you missed me, or until we got, what do you call it, voicemail or had an actual answer machine. So I think the how we've been socialized to technology has made it where has changed the dynamic of what we think communication is.
Yeah.
So if you ask anybody to write a letter to somebody today,
Ooh, I could, but
right, see, back in the day, that would have been like nothing to rip off of 30, 40, 50 years ago.
right.
Now it's like, I could, you would have done it, and everybody else in the room can too, So, but now that's a big deal. It's a big deal. So it's to me, from my observation and what experiences I've had over the years, is I've seen where there's a clash based on how we can get into, it's like getting into factions. It's like if everybody was watching Oprah and then everybody's watching, let's go back to Kevin Samuels, and you're talking about the same subject matter, but you're in your faction, and one group is amen kind of some of your beliefs and maybe expanding them and maybe poking holes in them a little bit, but they're not crushing your whole thing. Another group is doing the same thing, and they're pumping you up, and they may poke a few holes in it, but they're not crushing your whole thing. And it's gotten to the point where it's easier to do that. we are all old enough to remember when TV went off the air, right?
Yeah.
We got a generation that doesn't know that.
Well,
anything about
let's
that.
bring it back to the relationships. So,
Well,
not-
I'm trying to bring. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to be too long with, but I'm saying is that it, because there's a different experience, lived experience, and we're able to get into factions easier. Then each faction almost develop its own speak or its own way of communicating. And when you bring those two together, they're clashing because they really have removed themselves from. One says that this is a relationship. This one says this is a relationship.
Right.
They're speaking what they believe it to be, but when they get together, they're like, no, that's not how I define it.
Right.
You know, so I see a lot of that.
So it's all that emotion behind it because like I strong like this is what I believe in, this is what I firmly believe in. So you're wrong, and yeah, it's that that's where that disconnect is happening. No, I agree.
So I'm having a lecture. I don't know if I went all around the world with it, but
I'm curious that you brought that up. So then you have two women here. I mean, and you guys are champions of women from what I remember and know and observe.
Absolutely.
What do you all hear from women specifically when they're not around men and they're able to be a little bit more candid about what they're lacking from the men out there, from the love and the relationship aspect?
Oh wow, that's
is that too much to know?
No, this is what we're here for.
Hold on, let them get a bag.
Right. No, well, like I said initially, it's communication is always the big thing. Not listening, not being present. Some people complain about a man working all the time. That's not me. So it's hard to generalize because some women fight about different things or complain about different things. I had one friend who was like, well, he's always at work. And if he didn't work, then you'd be mad because the man ain't, get off your behind and do something.
So let's pause that for a second,
Yes.
if you don't mind. Yes. Communication comes up as like the number one as soon as anyone asks that question all the time. Yeah. And I always say, well, let's stop and start with that one. Since that seems to be number one, most complicated, then let's see what that means. Because if that's the most difficult one, that's the one that needs to be discussed with his dominance, right? So what does that mean? Well, what is the issue with communication?
Now, from kind of circling back to what Baba Kelly said earlier, and it depends on how you grew up, like where your faction is, whether it's Oprah or, and it's like the eagle shall not be named. Because I know someone who will literally probably have a whole conversation through a text message if they could. I mean, a whole relationship through a text if they could. That's their form of communication. And like, okay, so to just focus on one thing for that, me asking someone, how do you feel? Oh, I don't know. Well, what do you want? I don't know. Or not really telling you the depth of what you want, just giving me something surface. Oh, well, I don't know. I'm hungry. It's just like, you know what I'm saying? So give me very surface, not telling me exactly
more detail.
What do you want from me? What do you want from this relationship? I don't know.
We got the same.
I know what you're thinking. Yes, sir. Yes.
Please
no, you go ahead. You take that.
I love it.
Where's the sword? I'm gonna fall. Okay. All right. For instance, famous last words.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice knowing you.
If a person says, "Hey, I'm hungry," I say, "What do you want?" I don't know. How about Mexican? I don't want that. How about Italian? I don't want that.
Oh my God.
But that's a multi-choice question. So, I mean,
But that's what she said. That's what I was getting at. And what he was probably getting at too is that
find out what
guys
she
do
wants,
it.
right.
We, just like you have that.
men need to be asked specific questions.
We're really.
This is all the way through everything you do. I hear women say, I asked him if he was single and he said yes, but he had 3 girls. He never said he liked any of those girls that much, right? He was still single in his mind. You need to be specific.
Right.
Don't say, how do you feel? What does that mean?
Right.
Meaning, are you upset? Are you happy? What does happiness mean to you?
Yeah.
How do I participate in your happiness? Is it okay for me to to not be a part of your happiness? How does that make you feel when I'm not a part of your happiness, or when I'm trying to those specific, because men we don't discuss those things in our circles. We don't care about emotions quite the same way with the depth. We and I'll say this in generalities, men tend to, what I see is we like to put things in order and check it and be like, I did that, it's done. Right? I got the great woman. Check. I got a good job. Check. I got a nice house. Check. I got kids and they're taken care of. Check. And then we'll go back and we'll maintenance those things, but we don't maintenance those things always with deep emotion and extreme detail in how we feel about it. We maintenance those things from how we take care of it. Yeah. Right? We know you're safe. Right. Check again. We know the house is well built. Check again. The children are safe and fed. Check again. All the bills are paid, et cetera, et cetera. I made an advancement in my career, so I'm making more money. Check. We're being good men. And you go, everything's great. How do you feel?
Fine. Right. And we go,
literally, I think I'm doing all the right things. And then she may say something, well, I don't feel great. And you go, well, what happened? And a little piece of us goes, here we go. It's not because we're upset. It's because we didn't see it coming. Our checklist is filled. Yeah. If not, with some open spaces on it that we're trying to figure out how to do. Meanwhile, we didn't realize we weren't fulfilling something detailed. Just we need the detail of that question. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. So I guess that's where, and I don't know if it matters if women and men grew up with a 2-parent household or not. I'm not sure if that comes into play, because I just be all like, wait, what? So I'm sorry, I'm going to back to when you said if someone asks if you're single, and so how do you ask even more detail than are you single? Like, I don't understand that.
Because if a man hasn't committed to one woman, he's still single. He could be seeing more than one woman, right? He could be going on dates and actively pursuing women, but that doesn't mean he's in a committed relationship.
So we need to have.
Well, I think it's wording too, because I've heard women say, "Oh, that's my friend." Now, men, we don't think of I'm having sex with her and that's my friend.
Some people do.
No. Well, in generalizing. And so, but over the years I've seen where women say, "Well, that's just my friend," because she's not committed to him. So folks use certain words and they mean different things, like say infractions. Right. So amongst her girlfriends, they go, "Oh, that's a friend." Oh, everybody in that circle that mean. Dudes, that means something completely different. You know, and it's that's all it is. Like what we're doing right now, the more we communicate with each other, the more we find out what that word means to you. You find out what this word means to me. You know, and obviously those words have been working for me because I keep using them. Yeah. So and you do too. You know, so it's the same. And then you finally find where, oh, maybe that word is clashed with somebody. And the reason that it matters is because that person obviously cares a lot about you.
Well, it's obvious to whom. Sometimes it's not so obvious, but then it kind of goes back to what and I'm sorry if I say Davey, I do mean David. Like he said, they're checking off their boxes and they're thinking everything's okay. And I'm like, well, he didn't smile at me today. He didn't come give me, and I'm just like, well, what's happening? He's mad or he's doing something so so is it matter if when things happen like that, where, you're just going through your day and you think it's all good, but women are a little bit more.
We're intuitive.
Yes, and expressive. And
we feel it.
Right, we feel it. And we want you to see that either my hair has a tip of burgundy on it or something. And when you don't notice that, we have all these questions and, and everything. So like, how do we, from your standpoint of what you were saying, like, yeah, you just check your box and you're, I think it's okay, to the woman who's like, well, I need more. Like, how do we meet on that?
It's complicated.
Yeah, it's very complicated. I think sometimes my experience has been that sometimes women want us to be like, we're your girlfriend and not your man. And so when you say the accent of that or this and the other, we don't. Maybe sometimes, like if we're pursuing you, we might notice those little hints because we're pursuing you. But when we feel like we have you already, we're already, and when we say have, I mean, we're doing things with you for each other that I would do for no one else.
Right.
And so now it's like, it's not so much that I don't notice it as much. I'm doing a whole lot of other things I will do for nobody else. And when you tell me, hey, did you notice it? No, I didn't notice that. Thank you. That looks good on you. So that puts it in another arena. And it's not so much what I pay. So a lot of times, guys, I've noticed over the years when we talk, I sit with a couple of groups of guys where we all get together and we'll bring some stuff up and we might say, what would be another way to articulate that? I know what you meant, brother. I know what you meant.
Absolutely.
But that translated to this. That's why you got that end result.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. And the guy wants to know because he cares to figure, you know, and sometimes if folks don't break, like he was saying, if you don't, I like to believe this about us. We're real simple. I mean, we usually tend to be pretty simple. You could have a guy that wears the same jeans all week. You might wash them a couple times. So, I mean, just being real. I mean, because that shows our simplicity. It doesn't mean better. It just means simple. Like, for instance, I mean, I like to keep a decent place. I'm gonna tell you, our place, I always tell everybody, she tricks it out. And I just sit back, where you want me to put it? I mean, seriously, where you want me to, because I can make it look nice, but it's on steroids when she does it. And I'm not thinking about it that way.
And that bringing it up, that's a good form of the miscommunication.
Yeah.
Because when we first got together and you know, say a woman makes a house a home, so yeah, I have my certain ways of putting things, but when I would ask him, you know, or try to include him in it, it wasn't happening. It was like completely out. So I had all these other thoughts in my head, like, okay, look, you gonna help me do all this, or you gonna help me do this or not? You know, and he's like, I don't know what you're trying to do.
See, I need
what is all of this?
Right,
you know,
I need you to write it out and say,
and I'm like,
I want you to put this here, put this there,
just
put that up, and then I'd be done. I'm like, I'm down. Just give me the.
And that took,
you want me to do it?
That took a while
Right.
to get to that point, because I'm totally looking like, okay, that's how we gonna do it. Okay, I'm gonna do my thing, you do your thing. I see where we at. That's you, that's me. Fine. You know, and
we survived that. I mean,
we survived that. That's another question I like to pose. Do you think, for us, do we think that any relationship is able to be saved?
No.
You said any?
Any relationship?
Oh, no.
No.
No, not any. I mean, that's seriously generalizing. No,
Yeah.
not any.
No, I can definitely just roll a decks and go, absolutely not.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought up one about Meg and oh boy, we got. I mean, I don't think that's selfish.
Some women or men will try to make it work.
Yeah.
Right. He didn't mean it. Okay.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's, a lot of people are dealing with that right now. I know. I mean, not that particular shooting somebody, but or in situations where in their heart, you know, they're comfortable, they're afraid, and it could be a multitude of reasons. You know, I don't want to give up on them. I don't, you know, I told them forever. I'm a liar. I'm invested. You know, I don't want to let them down. There's so many reasons that people would try to salvage a doomed.
Or stay in relationships and they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Right.
Bringing up the one who shouldn't be named, right?
Right.
And you know, I mean, he's an ancestor now.
He is, I know, but we don't want his energy.
Well, like I'll
say right.
I'm like this, you know. And I'm gonna be real short. I flunked a Spanish class once, and when I had a different Spanish teacher, same textbook, I got an A. So I didn't like the delivery, but what they said was of value. And so the thing is you may not be delivering in a way that I've seen it with, remember Shahrazad Ali?
Oh yeah.
Back in the day. Now back in the 80s and early 90s, people was talking about it. Now people are touting what she's saying now. Like, but that was 30 some years ago. Right. You know? So I'm just saying it may not be for where the audience is at right now. You know? So and I said that and it made me lose something on that. But something that Kevin Samuel said. He said, do you realize that 80% of divorces happened based on women filing divorce, not the men.
Mm-hmm.
So statistically speaking, then this is the example that I remember him saying. He said that when women are unhappy, then they will file for divorce. Now, there could be various reasons for being unhappy. And then he said that men, we don't trip off the happy part as much.
Mm-hmm.
No, that can be a factor. And women too. Actually, he said that the cheating part is, I think he said it's like 45% of women cheat, and then 50 or 55% of men. But if it's like, if I went to Hollywood, California, and I only put the camera on the homeless, you'll never know that they're movie stars.
Yeah.
So if I focus only on certain stats with one group, you don't know the other, or you don't care to. One of the two, and so I think that's part of the disconnect that a lot of us are getting to because of media and all that stuff. Sometimes because it's shining over here and the other thing one has a candle and this other one has a whole lighthouse over here. It doesn't mean that the information is wrong, it just is a bigger spotlight on it at the time. Now, when we deal with media is trying to get paid.
Oh, yeah.
So if I don't recognize the source from where I'm getting it from, then you got to go, well, what's the reason for putting this out there like that? Like when they would say black home, black crime. Well, no, you tend to rob the people that are close to you. You don't go way out somewhere and do it. So, but if I only focus on that, that's why they don't say white on white crime, Asian on Asian crime, or whatever. You don't hear it. It became a buzzword, and so that's the only one you hear about though. So kind of the same thing with this. And our folks have been challenged since the day we got brought here.
Mm.
That's my reference. But the thing is, and there was things that were historically put in place specifically for us that other people were never they had the challenges, but not like we had on paper. So the thing is, we have a different challenge in order to stay together. That's how I look at things. And folks will use, they will push the buttons. Folks will push buttons to see what works. And if it pays off, they'll keep pushing them until we evolve out of that and they'll find some other buttons, And I think if our focus is, I want us to be together, if that is our focus first, then we will look at the other things as the things that come at us as, okay, why'd you do that? What does that have to do with us staying together? That's a polarity shift rather than saying, oh, well, all men do this, all women do that, So sweeping generalizations. If we say what will keep us together first, then that will change even how we speak to each other. When you say love, I'm gonna be more in alignment with when you say love because our focus is being together. So I'm supposed to keep trying to figure out what that means to you, and you're gonna keep doing that with me, So, but if we keep getting on this other stuff, then it's easier to capitalize off of that. It's easier to capitalize off dividing people, I think, sometimes than it is keeping folks together.
Exactly. Just to piggyback on that, and I think we would all possibly agree that, since you brought up with the media and some of the negative perceptions of Black couples specifically and Black relationships and Black family, because we're not projected in a true light, that it causes us sometimes to focus on the negative aspects instead of the reality, the positive aspects that we want and we need to see, that Black couples can be together. Black couples can stay together. They can raise families together. We are raising families together. We are in committed relationships. We're not, doing this. We are successful. We're not in this drama, all the time that is shown throughout the media. And so I think it's important for us to really learn how to break down what's real and what's not, and actually have those conversations. And especially with touching conversations that, we actually need to have. You brought up some of the slavery aspects, and we can talk about bell hooks and the psychological aspects of slavery and how it has affected us, and how we as women raise male children, as Black women how we may raise Black male children different than raising, Black female children, and how men, in a sense, may not, or we may think may not be as committed to us for whatever reason. Well, the basic reason was because they were taken and forced to not be committed. And so out of the need to want to be there, but knowing that massa or whatever was going to prevent you from being there, these walls were built. And if we understand that, not just psychologically, but genetically, how that has passed through us through all these generations and to how we relate, to one another. And I think it's a constant work. Nobody said that it was going to be easy. Healing is not easy. It never is. It's gritty, it's dirty. And when we talk about generalizations, in a sense, I think we all have some sort of aspects or traits of one another that sometimes we are not willing to admit.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we can even recognize misogyny, the fact that we can recognize, I guess just abusive behavior, verbal behavior. We have this, you always yelling, da 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 da. And can't you just come to me in a different kind of way? We don't do that, but can't you? Do I do that?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm saying, I mean,
We at the table and it's live. Now it's your chance to say what you want to say in safety.
We don't get into all that mess.
It's a safe space.
It's a safe space, very safe space, So say what you need. Say what you need to say.
Blink a little slower. Let me get the eyelids.
Oh,
No,
my
you look all right. The eyelids. Don't say help me on this. He's good. He's good. I think he's comfortable.
Right. So I believe that, the reason that we recognize certain behaviors is because, we've had a little bit of history to it, either we projected that ourselves or we've experienced it or, we've been involved in some kind of way. So all of it is in a sense relatable. But the fact is of how we create that shift to turn the positive and put it back on top of the negative, and I don't know, it's a lot. This is such a broad discussion, when we talk about Black male and Black female relationships, and I'm sure it brings triggers to, the other ethnicities as to, how, or even interracial couples, what does that mean? How does that feel? Are we saying that you can't love, someone of a different race or that relationship is not as important as this one? No. Not at all.
It's Black History Month and we're focusing on this specific.
Yeah.
And I think we're focusing on a very need in the community, in Black community, all over, in African, descendant communities. It's important for us to learn or important for us to see the reality in ourselves. Just as when we talk about branching out, from self-love, how can I love someone else if I don't love myself? And we all know we have a story as African people, and it's important for us to kind of heal. It's something about, having a brother say, I see you, I know what you're going through, or sis, I'm proud of you, It's a different communication. It's something about when I can hug, or come to a brother and see somebody who's in need or, something, or just like, hey, what's up with you? What's going on? We communicate a little bit differently. And it's just, I think it's that deepest parts of us, as being African descendants, that we connect. And it's important to understand that we do connect, and we have to. It's important for our healing. But that does not mean that, we just us, No, it allows us to branch out and have compassion for everyone else, and other things, So.
And I also think it's important as we're healing that to remember that, our brothers are healing too. Like David mentioned earlier, there's a big gap in what's needed. We'll have to do more for men on this show anyway.
I think so, definitely.
But yeah, so we know, women will joke and be like, oh, he must hate his mama, the way he's treating women. But it's like, you don't know, there may be some real trauma in his past, childhood, growing up, and it will affect his relationship, just like women's past and childhood will affect our relationships. But I think we need to get to the point where we're a little more kind. I know it's hard when your emotions are involved, but let's say you are dating someone and, you know, it doesn't work out. You just learn from that, you know, and it's like, what did I learn? Learn to love what you had. And it doesn't excuse people from accountability, but, you know, just learn to, okay, I love what I learned from there. Let's move on without bashing them once it's over, you know, and just.
And two, we've talked about this, communicated privately with our discussions as women trying to and really searching to understand men and what our roles is. And it's hard sometimes to knock down parentage. It's hard to knock down, you know, the things that we've been taught. And as for being women, you know, I was a single mother, you know, living in a single parent home. My mom worked 2 and 3 jobs, being there, you know, raising children ourselves and feeling as if in a sense that we had to do certain things or the ball would stop. Yeah. And I noticed when he and I got in a relationship, it was hard for me to relinquish some of the control because that's been me, you know, and if something falls, you know, that's going to be you, you know, so, and I, you know, it's like, we have to keep it going and have to keep it going, but not giving the opportunity to the man, you know, or to my partner to say, you know what, maybe he can do this. And if he can't, but what, I'm serious, but that's how I thought, you know, and I'm honest, very honest about that. That's how I thought. But, and if he can't, then what role is it that I need to play in order for him to have the space to even try to figure it out, or if it's something new to explore, that there may be a different way. And for myself too, you know, I think we get so committed in doing things our way and not seeing each person, you know, I think you said it before, seeing each other as individuals and giving the opportunities, you know, to do the things, you know, I got it, you know, that's me all day. No, don't worry about it. That's okay. I figured out, I got it, you know. Yeah, I'm gonna cut the grass and clean out the gutters, you know, and I'm gonna patch up the roof. No, you ain't got it. I got it.
Like, what are you doing? I was like, what are you doing?
Right. But
I was like, you got a whole man over here. What are you doing? Right, exactly.
That's been an issue with me in past relationships.
Yeah, and that's
what are you thinking when that happens?
Being older now, I know how to articulate it better.
Right.
You're younger
You don't.
and more immature. You might not. And men tend to hold things in for a while and just be like, whatever. Whatever. And then until it gets to the point where they're like, all right, well, look, I wasn't going to say all these things, but since we're having an emotional moment, I'll unlock that. So keep that, right. And that's not good either. We'll talk about that a different day, right? But to that point, I've learned to be honest up front with myself and my partner and say, you don't have to be hard with me, right? That's beside the communication aspect. Once we get past that, and I say get past it, meaning we both know we need to continue to forever work on it. It never stops, ever, not even a little bit. As soon as you go to sleep, a little last thing you like to think is, did I say I love you before? If we're at the love part of our relationship, did I reconcile the day with you, or did I push something over or forget about you some way? Even if it's just like, if I tell you like, hey, I didn't forget about you, just so you know, the day got away from me, but I care. So we can talk about whatever you care about whenever there's time for that to do that. And that's
monumental.
That's growth. And especially for Black women, I learned that society has put a pressure on you and a connotation on you of being a very difficult individual to deal with, right? And so Black men are starting to adopt this in their ideology. They're saying, why would I talk to a Black woman? Y'all hard to deal with. And then you go to work and you're hard to deal with. And now, so you're like, well, I'm hard to deal with. I'm going to be hard all the time.
Right.
And then we come along and go, you don't have to be hard, but we're asking you to stop being something you've been for a long time. It doesn't happen overnight. So I have to be patient, understanding, and something that men are not naturally is empathetic. That is a foreign language to us. Please understand that. Men are not naturally empathetic as a whole. I'm sure there's some very empathetic men out there, but for the most part, we check the box. We don't dig deep into the detail. We don't see the pain behind what you're saying. We go, you okay? You go, yeah. We go, all right, cool. She said she's okay. And then
she's okay. I'm not okay.
And I will say this too. When we do, sometimes what I found that what some women request they haven't had any experience with it. And when they
yes.
get that, it goes to the end. And at least as it's interpreted, because all of a sudden it's like you got what you asked for, but you don't have any experience with it. It's like I give somebody $1 million and they don't know how to bounce their checkbook. They'll be broke next year, because they haven't had the experience with it. And a lot of men, if we're not as emotionally as expressive, same thing. We're like, handing me $1 million worth of, and all of a sudden it's like we're broke next week because we don't have the, I remember this with I would bring everything back to my sons, and when my boys were little, I remember somebody giving my youngest son a Dora the Explorer backpack. And he caught all this help from the adults. Now, he was little. He's got a girl's backpack. And I asked the guy, I said, hey, do you have a daughter? He said, yeah. And Dora's an explorer, right? She's like an archaeologist and all that stuff, right? Well, wouldn't you want a guy to respect her for what she does? Well, that's what he's got already. And he went, dang. He had never thought of it that way. Another thing was I used to tell him, look, I think my oldest got teased on the playground about something. And I said, and he was upset and he was crying about it or whatever. And I said, what they said, was it true? He said, no, what'd they say? He said, we were talking about my mom. I said, is it true? He says, I was like, no. I said, if I have no problem with you crying because the creator put tear ducts in your eyes just like he did a girl. And just like a grown man and a grown woman. Thing is though, I said, now, if somebody's messing with you, you can walk away from them or whatever. I said, but if I'm going to teach you how to fight, because if they put their hands on you, you're going to help them cry alongside you. Okay, so you can fight for your right to be human because they don't think that what you're doing is human because they don't feel comfortable with it either. And they've learned that when somebody else expresses that side of their humanity, that you can treat them less human. And boys deal with that a lot. Girls don't in the same way. I'd say in the same way. And so boys wind up learning, don't express from down there. I've heard women and men who will say, a little boy this tall, man up.
Yeah, no.
And I used to tell my sons, look, if you walk in a dojo over the weekend, will you have your black belt by the end of the weekend? Well, no, same thing with manhood. You don't hear too many guys tell a woman up. She had to be a girl first to get to the point to understand what it's like to be a woman. I've seen where women will tell a guy, when they get to be 18, you're a man now. And he's sitting there like, but I still live with you. You know what I mean? So, and he knows he's not. But if you give him the benefits that go along with what men should have, real men who will try to take care of you, then he has no reason to level up.
Say that again.
He has no reason to level up to what you say, because, guys, a lot of times we're very literal, and so if you call me a man and I'm still living in my mom's basement,
It's false validation.
So how do you support that man? You don't want to put him down, you want to lift him up, but how do you support your man in that situation?
I would say champion the things about him that you do like, and then ask him what his goals are and how he plans to be better. Like the value of things, for lack of a better term, lie within women. I'm gonna be honest with you.
True.
He said it earlier. Men are simple, right? If we have a house, a couple of pictures, a couch, TV, it's a good looking house. And a woman comes in and goes, "Oh, it feels cold in here. You need some warmth to this." The value rises with women, all those things, every innovation, technology, cars, clothes, all that is because men are trying to, in essence, provide, protect, or impress, peacock, all those things for women. So the value is you guys. So if you see a man and you recognize his potential, you don't have to destroy where he is right then. You champion the things about him that's great, and you go, I know you can be more than this. I know that the man is inside of you because the man you are today is pretty damn good. The man you can be even better. And here's how. You're intelligent. So what's your educational plan? You're caring. So let's talk about how much I care for you and how I want you to continue caring for me and what you're doing that I don't like, but I know you can do, right? And the things that I don't do, tell me, talk to me. If you do those things instead of coming to him with just the, oh my God, you're not this or you're not that, or conversely, you're excellent. What you just said earlier, it happened to me as a young man. I get told very early, man, you're doing great. I was like, yeah, I am doing great. Ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. And then later on, when you get around men older than me and more established and more intelligent, more wise, I'm like, I'm in the wrong room. What happened? I thought I was great. Oh, okay. Maybe I wasn't great. I was great to her, but she was just trying to throw that at me because she wanted what she thought she wanted from me, but she gave me too much. Like you say, I was almost emotionally and a little bit morally bankrupt because I felt like I didn't need to add to myself. So it was too easy for me to be like, well, I'm so great. I'll see who else thinks I'm great, right? Because you're telling me that too early in my life. You need to tell me I like you, I appreciate you, but no one's perfect. I got some growth, you got some growth. Let's come together and see if we can grow together. But don't blanket someone.
I think that women who do that, because I know I've done it, it's a mixture of, like you said, you called it false validation. Like I was, trying to encourage somebody, but lacking, facking, and cracking. I don't know, but but it's like, and on the other side, I'm afraid if I'm too hard on this man, I might lose him too. There's that fear. So it's just.
I think that's a big word you just said. A lot of relationships are based in fear.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if that's the foundation of it, they say fear and love can't occupy the same space or something like that or whatever. If that's in there, then that's some things that are going to constantly be a challenge because that's what you're bringing, your lens of what you call love, and it's like I would tell people, because sometimes I'll say stuff and people are like, man, you say it so hard like that. Everybody's got that. You just make the sweeping generalization to some degree. Everybody on the planet is having to learn that. The thing is if we generalize it and we say, I'm supposed to love everybody, then that's not a relationship. It's not the same comparison like I have with an individual while I'm in a relationship with one person. Hence, studying each other. You study. I can get into another reference myself. My oldest son said to me, Dad, how do you know when that this is the right woman? I remember saying this to my grandfather. And he said, and in saying this too, that also means I'm talking to other men. Makes a big difference.
For women talking to other men,
no,
or men talking to
men talking to each other too, because especially ones who've been in relationships. Because if I talk to a guy who's never been, I had a guy, he said to me, this one brother, he said, hey man, women always this and women always that, and I'm always, and these women out here, they ain't no good in this, that, and the other. And I said, hey brother, I said, now I don't want to fault any of my friends who are gay or lesbian, the whole LGBT thing. I said, brother, are you gay? And he looked at me like, man, I can't believe you said that, brother. Man, he got all upset. And I said, no, brother. I said, when I really, really get am dissatisfied with something, I look for other options. And he got quiet. Because every time you talk about women,
he's complaining. I see what you're saying.
You're talking about, if I get upset with Jeeps all the time, then I'm probably going to have a different kind of car than Jeeps, right? So, and I said it that way too, in a general way and he was like, oh man, I never thought about it. I said, every time you come to me, you complain about women. Every time. And I said, now, what type of women do you find yourself attracted to where you keep getting the same end result? I'm just saying, do they all have a similar look? Do they all talk similarly? Do they all, education background? Have you noticed that there's a pattern? Because you're the one choosing. If I always see you with a red car, obviously you like red cars. You know what I mean? So, no matter the make or model, So that part right there is where you have to start doing this stuff. Because if you find that same pattern happening all the time, you're like, yo, that's you, bro.
That's an interesting pivot because I see it a lot where some men, especially brothers in particularly, will be like, oh, I'm tired of the weave. I want to see natural hair. What can just Lamarck say? I want to see some stretch marks, you know? But you harden all the BBLs and, you know, or, you know what I'm saying? It's like.
Wait, BBL, I'm sorry. I'm not.
Oh, sorry.
This is showing. Okay.
Basically cosmetic surgery. Like,
okay.
Brazilian.
Brazilian butt lift thing. Okay, okay.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So it's like you're praising this look. You say you want one thing.
Not praising it.
You're not praising
we're not praising it.
Oh, okay.
No,
but tell me what it
Because
is.
I hear that a lot too. I've heard that quite a bit. It's like, oh, you say you want a woman to be natural, but then you're Instagram harding. You have to understand the difference, right? That those are so different.
Yeah.
So different. That's no different than being like, does LL Cool J look really good? Would you agree that he's a handsome, attractive man?
Oh, he's handsome.
Absolutely. If he was on Instagram, would you heart him?
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you're going to get with LL Cool J.
Right.
You can respect the fact that he looks good, right? We see women on that Instagram, for instance, using that platform as an example, and they're showing off specifically what that thing is that men like, a curve, right? But I don't know if I like you. I just like what you presented. That's no different than a cheeseburger. I can't eat them every day. It's bad for me.
Right.
And I could tell you in reality, when you see these BBLs up close, they don't look that good anymore. Right? It's the menu item, but then once you get on your plate, you're like, I don't live in the world. It's not what I bought. I would rather it be natural, because what you want to take home, what you want to enjoy, what you want to love is something that you know someone either worked hard for or didn't. Right? I mean, this is personal. No disrespect to BBLs out there. You go do with your body what you want to do.
Yeah.
But personally, I would prefer you work hard on yourself and you look fit because you look fit. Yeah. And that's you. That's my dynamic. And I think most men, especially of a certain age, probably over 30, are feeling that way because they recognize that like something might be not quite right here if you risk your life just to look good.
Yeah.
That something is missing there, and you haven't worked on that part of you with a therapist. You work on that part of you with a cosmetic surgeon, right? And that's to me scary. Yeah, that's a flag, I have to say. And I'm like I said, I'm not bashing those people because I have flags of my own to work on. So I'll go work on mine. You go work on yours, and we may or may not meet somewhere in the middle. But that being said, me liking someone's Instagram picture is no reflection on the woman liking her in a frame, but being deeply attracted to the woman you're with is so different. Yeah, it's so different.
You know, this is something an elder taught me. They said, you know, how you know what a person values by how they spend their time and their receipts. And time you can never get back. And so, but you can always make money to make more receipts. Okay, but that's also how you spend your time too, in order to get the money, have receipts. So that lets you know that a lot of times men, when we're serious about it, we look at it through that lens. I'm spending a certain time with you. I'm giving my resources to you. Hence that whole providing, the whole thing, all that. That, for a lot of men, denotes love to us.
And
you
have to tell me that, because we view things, differently. And I know for me, I was like, okay, I know, it comes up quite often in relationships. Like, do you love me? Do you really love me? And what does this mean? What does it mean?
I thought he saw the look. I saw the look too. I was like, that was a question. That was a statement.
But
slide over here and let you
it's come up, and it's like, what?
I got the candle. You got the candle on your side. It's warm on this side.
It's so hot up there.
But he's like, what? And one thing I love when he does this, and he says, woman. I wouldn't be doing A, B, C, D, E, F, G, L, M, N, O, P if I did not love you. And I'm like, okay.
That's real.
It's real.
I cannot like you today, but ain't nobody gonna touch you. I can tell you that right now. If the world came crumbling down, I'm gonna be on top of you so it don't hit you first. And I cannot like you through that whole process, but I'm not gonna stop loving you because I don't like you today.
And that's manhood.
And that's how we think. We know if it all burns down, we got to rebuild it for you.
Exactly.
Right. Less money, more money. Strong, weak, whatever. My grandmother a long time ago told me in life, you decide what kind of man you're going to be. You be a man who can do, or you make enough money so you can pay somebody else who can do it for you. But don't be neither.
That's right.
Right? So you have men who can fix things, who are handy, or computer literate, et cetera, et cetera. And you said it's difficult for you as a woman, having been independent for so long, to hand those things off to him. Understandable, it takes time. And as a man, it takes time for us to stand back. I've been in relationships where I'm like, because I'm a very handy person that comes from my whole background. And something will get fixed. I'm like, why'd you call another man? We need to have a conversation.
Right, exactly. We'll take it as a slight.
You do. And one of the people you compete with, believe it or not, especially because we talk about broken homes, is a woman's father.
Yeah.
A woman's father can be that man sometimes because she's like, well, my dad used to, and you're like, I'm not your daddy.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so don't call your daddy when you need man stuff. Call your daddy when you need daddy stuff.
Right, exactly.
And that's
that's real talk, though. That is real talk. And you know, so, and I'll say this: growing up, it was like Ripley's Believe It or Not on my block to see a black dad. So, and in saying that, I remember there was 2 black fathers on our block when we lived on the South Side. And it was almost like we were watching a TV show. They'd come out and we're watching him. One guy who lived 2 doors down from me, the other guy lived across the street. We're watching him mow his lawn. We're watching how he interacts with his daughters. And stuff. We're watching it. And they don't realize how much we're ear hustling and observing because they don't realize how much, but they might have realized, I don't know, but it's filling a gap. Yeah. It's filling a gap. And I noticed that with young men now, it fills a gap, you know, and you go, oh, this guy is really watching how I'm doing. He's asking certain questions. Now, 20 or 30 years ago, I wouldn't have noticed it the same way.
Absolutely.
But at this stage, I go, oh,
I do it.
I know what this is. Right, exactly, brother.
I notice that they get close. They want to be around.
Yeah.
Ask goofy questions. They know the answer to. They just want to be close.
Yeah.
Hey, how does that work? You're like, really?
You know it.
Okay, I understand. I noticed it in me. I love being around older men.
Me too.
I love it. Nothing makes me happier than listen to old men just complain.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's great. I don't even want to say anything. I just want to sit back and let them go. And it's wonderful because I never get it.
Yeah.
Men don't do it.
Yeah. And it's like being the kid again in the room. Like, for instance, this past week, Baba Kunama, who was drumming for us, he was one of my first drum teachers. So when he said, Kelly, drum with me for a second, to this day, I still feel like a kid.
Absolutely.
With a beard like this when I drum with him. And he's like, no, you take lead. And I'm like, you saw there was a slight. I still felt like a kid. And I think for men in particular, it is good for us to have that hierarchy around us of men that we saw that were consistent, that have survived. Because I watched them raise his children when he was married. Yeah, I watched that years ago when I first met him. So I'm like, okay, big check mark on these boxes. So it ain't just me drumming with him. It's all this other stuff he brings that makes me respect him on a lot of levels. So it's like, okay, I can use that when I have kids. I can use that. And I have, you know, so a lot of the young brothers I see, and even some of the guys who are my age, there are guys who come to me and ask me advice. And we do this with you. And this is what it's how, like, it's the same stuff y'all do. I mean, I used to be part owner of a hair salon, and I would sit back there and I would be at the computer, and I'd listen to the conversations women have. Like, guys, we don't share shoes and stuff. Like, we don't do stuff like that. Y'all do that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is some of this stuff, not the shoe thing, but you know, this is stuff we should be doing. And there's a reason why we say y'all network a certain way, but a certain way we do it too. If we play basketball, if we play sports, that's us doing that. That's us kind of doing what y'all do when you're in the salon. Barbershops. Women walk in, the whole conversation will change. Completely change. It don't matter if it's a grandma or a 4-year-old. That's how much power
Women have.
that when we walk in the room, because we're trying to sharpen each other.
And that all that within the relationship aspect.
Yeah.
I think it was you. I can't remember who said it earlier, but you were saying that men being around other men to talk about relationships is important for them to understand how to deal with future relationships, especially when they're young. I would also say maybe a smaller dose, but it may be beneficial for them to be around men who aren't in relationships as well, because they can see, if they talk to these people and earnestly talk to them, how did you get there? Why are you like that?
Right.
I'm single, so I'm around friends, and I have friends who've been married, specifically this friend group, and this guy and his wife have been married for 25, 26 years, since they're like high school sweetheart type thing. Their kids are now adults. Their kids are in relationships. I joke with the kids all the time. I ask them all the time, like, what are you guys into? What are you guys doing? But in earnesty, but in jest to a certain degree, because I don't want to come off preachy. But at the same time, I told them the truth. I said, your dad is a great example of so many things. I love your dad. So always go to him for things. But there's some things he can't teach you because he's always been your dad and he's always been a husband your entire life. You don't know how cold the world is because you've had that shelter in him. Understand, out here in the world, you better do everything for your woman. You better keep her because there's guys who are way worse than me out there waiting to get the opportunity to get her. It better not be because you left something undone because you felt your pride couldn't handle it. Don't do that. Trust me. That's a huge thing for men is we look outside and we're like, oh, I ain't ready, or I got this and I got that, and I don't want to be put in a situation or the fear of missing out or something like that, or something better over here, and you got something great next to you, and then somebody else comes along and it's gone, and you be like, no big deal. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal, and you have no one to discuss. There's no restitution for that.
Yeah.
For men, there's women. You guys break up, guaranteed. It's on the next table talk. Why do women break up? Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Right. Men break up, they were like, hey, brother, that's tough.
All right.
What you gonna do now?
Yeah.
Right.
But you're saying you need that emotional support?
Absolutely. Everyone does. Because we've invested something in each other. It's not as apparent for men, but it's there.
Oh, yeah.
And I pride myself. Look, I do it all the time. I like making quote unquote tough guys talk softly. Because you can't out tough me. Yeah. Right. You can't, you're usually not bigger than me. You're not tougher than me. I've done crazy stuff in the military. I've done all these things. So you're not going to come over and be like, well, you're a soft guy and tough guys do that. Like I've done all the tough stuff. So now we can get that off the table. Let's talk about being soft a little bit. Let's talk about how you can't yell at your daughter and how you go play dolls with her. I've done it. Right. Let's talk about the things that you don't want to talk about. Let's talk about how you love your woman. Right. Because men don't talk about that with each other. Right. Well, let's talk about what the things outside of her physicalities that you love about her, because we'll talk about that. Man, I love my wife's blah, blah, blah. My girlfriend's blah, blah, blah. But we're like, what about how funny she is? Does that ever come up? Because you never hear in the beginning. The guy doesn't come around and go, man, I just met this girl named Tigra and she's hilarious. Right. But when we're around you, we laughing together all the time. And we think you are hilarious, but we don't champion that. Why? It's not important to other men until we make it important. So that has to come out, and that comes from all men. That comes from, what's that real famous movie? They made a part 3 of it this past year. God, what is it with Terrence Howard?
The Best Man's Wedding, or my best.
Is it the best man?
It's something like that.
But I feel like
it was Best Man. But I feel like the part 1, most of them were single. At least Terrence Howard's character was single-ish in it before he got in it, and he played that role, right? Very much the anti-hero to a degree, right? He wasn't married. He was habitually single, but he had a heart, right? Yes. And so he would tell you things from the real aspect, like, hey, it's hard out here. You ain't built for this. They need to hear that too. They don't need to hear, absolutely, love your wife and we're all perfect and let's go. What if you're not going to do that? Who's the guy you call when you're in the streets? You need to hear that guy's conversation too. So that's important for relationships. You need to know all aspects of it, because some people glorify the single guy's life, right? It looks good. You got a bunch of women, you got a nice car, you got all this time because you ain't spending it with one person. Right. You got a party and a clubbing and all that. They're on Instagram. They always doing something. It's like, man, that guy's life looks like what I want. Talk to him for real and ask him, is that great for real? Because it probably isn't as great as you think it is.
And a lot of times that's extended toward adolescent stuff. I mean, it's the same stuff you wanted when you were a teenager. Now you can afford it.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's basically what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, that guy's sports car will eventually be a minivan down the road, and so once he decides to be in a relationship, I mean, one where he's got children and stuff like that, you can't pack all them kids on 2-seater. You know what I'm saying? It's eventually the practical stuff is going to come. You know, if you're serious,
Right, I was gonna say,
If you're serious,
yeah.
you know,
Right.
I know. So as we wind down on this part one of healing in Black male and female relationships, I'm going to pose one final query to my men guest here. How do you feel about therapy?
oh yeah, I think everybody's, yeah, especially Black folks. For real. I mean, straight up. I mean, I'll just say there are some folks who I've seen where they have experienced things and will say, I'll say, there are things that some Black folks I say wake up to that we still go about a day and somebody else would be on somebody's couch in therapy.
I see.
So, and still come home and still handle what you're supposed to handle. I always reference my grandfather. He was born 1900. So he's during Jim Crow era, all that stuff, and you're raising a family. Now, because of the things that, and they, you know, it's a bunch of kids, had a house, worked his butt off, worked 4 or 5 jobs, all their business. And now, mind you, it was a different time. There were no cell phones, there was no internet, there was all these amenities, all that stuff. But the thing is if they could do that then my reference is, okay, what am I tripping off of? Because I haven't had anybody come down my door and knock on my door and say, "Oh, you got to be out of town," or somebody's going to be. You know, you have no laws that say that you have rights and all, and you still got your family together. You know, I think, and I don't mean we had no issues. Like we had to, compared to today, we had to walk around with an S on our chest every day, if you made the reference. But because there were also scars in the middle of that. Just because you won the battle, I mean you ain't got no scratches. You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of times we reference some stuff from back in the day and don't reference also the scars they got. And now we're in a different time where we can get the things we need, so we don't necessarily have to have those scars. And that part right there is there, because we basically use church. I mean, historically. You know, in barbershops and hair salons, you know, and eventually organizations where we're in fraternities or sororities or whatever, but that still wasn't like therapy, you know. So I think we all need that, too, personally.
No, I agree. I mean, I said it earlier.
Yeah.
You did.
That everyone needs some level of therapy because there's some healing inside of you. And I think then that's individualistic. It's family based and maybe even relationship based. And then I know it's a lot of investment for someone, right? Mm-hmm. That's 3 different potential avenues of therapy you may be seeking. And in this world where people are extremely busy and men coming from a dynamic that we don't typically want to address our issues, right? It's very difficult for women and mothers and whatever to get men into therapy. But I personally, like I said, I'm that guy who I'm in the room and I'm like, I got it. You can throw an axe. Great, you throw it. Now, have you talked to someone about why you feel the need to throw an axe at 45? Do you think that's a big deal? Let's talk about that, right? I can start the conversation off with you, but I always start off with, I'm not a doctor, right? So I'm just talking to you as a friend, a buddy, a man. You need, once you open that floodgate with a man, though, it's a gate.
Yeah.
Right.
And there was someone on some other podcast that I watched, and you guys probably heard the reference before. I think it was a famous singer or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, her point was that she said something about men being hurt by women. And she was like, you got to learn as women when you're in a relationship with a man, that if they finally let their guard down with you and they open that up to you, don't take that as an opportunity to ever hit him there.
That's right.
Because you lose the ability to ever have him open up again.
right.
Because men guard our emotions
All the time.
way more deeply than
All
women
the
do.
time.
We don't feel the need to open up. It takes a long time. And the longer the guy's been building that wall, the higher and stronger it is. So if you get a man who has a hell of a wall and you've worked your butt off to get him to drop it, embrace it, even though you might hate what's behind it, just don't punch him in it.
Yeah.
Have him go to therapy with you and let that person help him open it more in front of you. But don't punch him in it because he will close it.
I think a lot of times, once again, it's what you ask for.
Yes.
But if you have no experience for what you ask for, then if it is to use that against that person, then, just like if somebody, you opened up to somebody and all of a sudden they use that against you later, you're like, I thought that was inconfidence. That was this, that was that. Put that on steroids with a man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Put that on
You
steroids.
notice that men do that with you all? Like in your relationship, probably, I'm not assuming, but I would gather that there was points where he opened up a little to you. And as a woman, you guys are very intuitive with that. You were like,
Thank
you
you.
just gave me something kind of deep. You
Right.
said it very casual.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
as men, we're testing. We're like, I didn't like my mom a lot. Anyway, I'm gonna go out and get something to eat. And you're
You're
like,
like, what?
exactly. You're like,
Wait a minute, what?
and you just put it in your pocket like, I'm gonna bring that up again. And later on, he might give you a little bit more and be like, yeah, she burned me with a hot iron when she's doing my sister's hair one day. You're like, that's 2 little nuggets. And we're just giving you pieces because we ain't ready to open the floodgates up because it's painful, but we don't know how to deal with that emotional pain because it just hasn't been an avenue that's ever been addressed in the vast majority of men's lives. So when we, like I say, we give it to you in trickles and we let you guys absorb it. And hopefully it never gets to a point where there's this crescendo of a relationship conversation or argument where that thing gets attacked because we're waiting on the hook. We're always looking for that. Is she going to use this against me one day? Is she going to be like, your mom didn't like you anyway? You're like, nope, never mind. I'll just cover up.
The other part of it is that we come out where the world is looking for the chink in your armor.
Absolutely.
So from the time we're in elementary school up, so if you've had a lot of practice with we've been entrained. That's why I was telling you that I did the thing with my sons, to give them a point of reference for that, so that they would know, okay, that guy's tripping, I'm not tripping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you heard it from home in a way that it can be dealt with too. But I also gave you some degrees before you escalate. You know what I mean? So before you go there, because this is what, if he goes to here, then this is when you're allowed to do this. Rather than, oh, they looked at me funny. What I mean? I'm just serious. I mean, so a lot of guys, you're in the military, so you've seen how people come in and the reasons for being there and whatever, and then you got to let them know, no, this is what it really is, And so the same thing has to be done with relationships. This is what has to do with you getting to know who you really are, how to be present. A lot of folks don't know how to do that. A lot of people ask folks to focus and they don't know what it is themselves. Or when somebody says, relax. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. It's like, okay, I can tell you that, but if you don't show me how, I'm showing you how, obviously I don't know how to do that. Or I would have done it already. You know what I mean? It's not like you gotta sit in the corner and go, oh, you know what I'm saying? But if you don't have that in you yet, then, till you're there, you're not.
I agree. I would say lastly that don't treat therapy for yourself specifically like a fad diet.
Yes.
I think that is a thing I see even from women probably more, but men too. We like to say checklists on us, right? I've gone for my 8 sessions. I feel a little bit better. I said some things. She agreed. Now let's go home and work on it. Therapy over. Or woman goes to therapy. I've worked on myself. I found a good man. Therapy over. Right? I go to the gym. I worked out. I feel a little bit better. I can go to the beach. Gym over. It's like, no, it's a continued effort because more things are going to be buried to layer. You're an onion and so on and so on. So I just hope people that don't stop going to therapy, even if you found the love of your life and your life seems to be perfect. I think you guys said it on previous episodes is that make your appointments and go to therapy when you don't need it.
Right.
That way, when you do need it, you already got it. So that's super important. Absolutely agree.
Joe, he watches our show. Look at he's a kid.
Hey.
Oh, we need to announce too our special gifts. Tuesday table
Well, I have learned so much. I enjoyed this talk, and I know I cannot wait. Like I said, you don't know, but it's going to be a multi-series. So be prepared to see Kelly Wembley, David Brookfield as regulars on a relationship series. And we'll break it down, specific subjects so that we can, and if you have anything that you want us to talk about, leave it in the comments, let us know. And we'll be sure to add it on one of the future shows.
Definitely.
Yes.
And time for our announcements.
Yes.
So, of course, Friday open mic night. Always every Friday from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. So come out. We're still in Black History mode. So I think we're going to do, what did we say we're going to do? TV shows. So taglines or famous lines. And
So fun.
yeah,
Makes it so
trivia
fun.
to see if we can guess which particular show. So bring your acting skills. And are we doing brunch and biz for Saturday?
That's Saturday at 2:00.
Yeah, brunch and biz
Here at Love and Light.
right? Our networking event. So any entrepreneurs or entrepreneur seekers, we have that Saturday at 2 p.m. Bring your business ideas, and that's just our introduction as to what we're going to do to help boost businesses.
And bring your laptops. Come while it's free.
It's free.
Because in the future we'll have workshops, and those will be paid workshops.
Exactly. And on Sunday. Look, y'all, this is the whole final of this love week. So this is going to be the fun. Okay.
So as you know, Tiggy Pink does self-care Sundays. So for February, it is more focusing on self-love.
Yes.
So, Mardi Gras is this weekend. The big parade is on Saturday. Well, here at Love and Light Wellness, we're going to have Naughty Gras. So basically an extension. An extension of the Mardi Gras celebration. We're going to have a special menu. The owner of Love and Light Cuisine is having vegan shrimp po' boys, shrimp and grits, shrimp and fries. This is Cajun. Oh, it's going to be so delicious. So you have to come by. We're going to have, we're going to have king cakes, gooey butter cakes, and so many treats. And we have the cheesecakes here too. Yes, everything's vegan.
And not just the food.
Yes.
What else is happening?
Okay. So we will also have. So we're going to have Pure Romance here. If you know, you know. She's going to have like 5 trunks full of things.
Trunks.
So
Trunks.
yes. We're going to have a special Naughty Gras soundtrack. If you have a special request for a song, let me know now. I'll add it to the list. We will have henna tattoos by local artist Halima.
Yeah.
We will have belly dancing. And we will have a twerk shop. Tiggy's twerk shop. That will start at 6 o'clock in the evening. So if you don't want to see, avert your eyes, leave before 6, but 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, we're going to be working on those glutes.
That's right. A lot of work, guys.
Yes, I'm so excited. 10 o'clock, you can pay at the door, you can cash up, follow Love and Light Cuisine, Mantra, or Tiggy Pink, and you'll see the links there.
That's right.
I'm so excited.
Yes.
Energy work class.
Oh, yes. Wednesday, March 1st, Kelly Wembley will be doing energy workshop. So
excited.
Look out for that.
So excited.
Yeah, that's gonna be
He has powerful energy, so I cannot wait for that
the
one.
airbender.
Yes. Love it.
So
One more thing in February, the 25th, we're having Indian night here.
Yes.
Just look out for that.
Yeah.
That's a special thing.
That's
so
Saturday.
just look out for that flyer coming up soon.
Yeah, so we'll attach all the flyers as they come. Please share these videos, subscribe, keep us going, which we're going to be going anyway. And love each other, be compassionate, do what you naturally do, and let's continue to respect one another as
Love
women,
one another.
as men, and be sweet, as we are. So, yeah.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
See you next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
Speaking of sweet, there's some cheesecake.
Yeah. So,
Oh my gosh.
Wait a minute.
I got all kind of, I have chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Do this, please.
See, this chocolate is from Imagine. I have a gooey butter cake
Let's do
from
this.
Royally Baked.
Vegan.
What all this is? Well, I know it's vegan.
Everything's vegan.
Okay.
Imagine Cafe is in Memphis, Tennessee. Please check them out. Family-owned business. The owners are amazing.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. This gooey butter, red velvet gooey butter is from a local baker, Royally Baked. I always talk about them. Adina's Vegan Cuisine. Yes, has turtles. And I think they're off Page and Ferguson. I think they're there until 6 o'clock.
Oh wow.
And Royally Bake is going to be open until 6 o'clock. So local St. Louis, check them out today. Go right now. It's raining in the traffic, so be safe.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yay! Happy Love Day. Happy Love Day. All right, let's go. We out of here.
Oh, try. I didn't mean to close it. Yeah.
Did you want to do your?
Did you end it? You ended it?
Yeah.